The sigh that escaped my lips was a big one. The kind that comes from deep down after a long, long day. My shift at the diner had run late again, and my feet were throbbing. All I wanted was to kick off my shoes, maybe heat up some leftovers, and see what my 11-year-old, Jaden, had been up to. Moving to this new neighborhood, into this townhouse, was supposed to be a fresh start for us. A quieter place, good schools for Jaden. That's what I kept telling myself. I pulled my old, trusty sedan into our assigned parking spot. Number 4B. I made sure to double-check the faded paint on the asphalt. The last thing I needed was another little note from the Homeowners Association, the HOA. We'd only been here 3 weeks, and I'd already gotten a friendly reminder about putting the trash cans away exactly on time. Not an hour early, not an hour late. This place, with its perfectly cut grass and matching mailboxes, felt a little stiff. Like everyone was holding their breath, trying not to mess up. It wasn't exactly warm and fuzzy. I cut the engine and just sat there for a second, letting the quiet sink in. Jaden was in the passenger seat, headphones on, probably lost in one of his video games. He'd been a real champ about the move, even though I knew he missed his old friends. "Almost home, sweetie," I said, reaching over to gently pat his knee. He gave me a little smile, then went back to his game. Time to tackle the groceries. I popped the trunk and started grabbing bags. Milk, bread, cereal, the usual. A bag of Jaden's favorite chips as a little treat. It was a cool evening, the kind where you can smell autumn just around the corner. For a moment, it almost felt peaceful. Then I saw them. 2 men walking towards me from the direction of the little community clubhouse. They weren't strolling, they were walking with a purpose. Both were middle-aged, wearing dark blue polo shirts with some kind of shield emblem on the chest, and khaki pants. They had badges clipped to their belts and walkie-talkies that crackled now and then. Community Safety Patrol, or something official sounding like that. I'd seen them around a couple of times, mostly driving slowly in a golf cart, looking important. My stomach did a little flip. I hadn't done anything wrong, had I? My car was in the right spot. I wasn't making any noise. They stopped a few feet away. One was taller, with a little paunch and a severe haircut. The other was shorter, with a mustache that looked like it was trying to escape his face. "Evening, ma'am," the taller one said. His voice wasn't friendly. It was the kind of voice that expected you to jump. "Good evening," I said, trying to keep my own voice light and polite. I balanced a grocery bag on my hip. "Do you live here?" he asked. Not, "Are you visiting?" or "Can we help you?" Just a flat, "Do you live here?" I felt a little prickle of annoyance. "Yes, I do." "Unit 4B. I nodded towards our front door, just a short walk away. The shorter one with the mustache looked at my car, then back at me. His eyes went up and down, taking me in. My work uniform, a slightly too big polo shirt with the diner's logo and black pants, probably didn't scream fancy townhouse owner to him. "We're going to need to see some identification," he said, his hand resting near his badge. "My ID." I blinked. "Why?" I mean, I was standing right by my car in my assigned spot with groceries. Did I look like I was about to cause trouble with a carton of eggs? "Standard procedure, ma'am," the tall one said, his voice still flat. "We've had some reports of suspicious vehicles in the neighborhood. Just making sure everyone who is supposed to be here is here." He emphasized that last part, like he doubted I belonged. Suspicious? My 10-year-old car? It was clean, it ran fine, but it wasn't exactly a getaway vehicle. This felt off. It felt like they were picking on me. I'm new, a single mom. Maybe I didn't fit their idea of who should live in their perfect little community. I tried to push that thought away. "Don't be paranoid, Lisa." "Okay," I said slowly. "My driver's license is in my purse, in the car." I really didn't want to put my groceries down on the wet pavement, but it looked like I didn't have a choice. This was ridiculous. "We'll wait," the mustache guy said, crossing his arms. He looked impatient, like I was wasting his valuable crime-fighting time. I sighed quietly, put the bags down, and leaned into the car to get my purse. Jaden looked up, headphones askew. "What's wrong, Mom?" "Nothing, honey. Just some neighborhood helpers, I said, trying to sound casual. I didn't want him to worry. I fumbled for my wallet, my hands suddenly a little shaky. It was one thing to get a note about trash cans. It was another thing entirely to be treated like a criminal in your own driveway. I pulled out my license and handed it to the tall officer. He took it and studied it for a long moment, then looked at me, then back at the license. Like he was trying to find a flaw. So, Lisa Miller, he said, drawing out my name. And you just moved in? Yes, about 3 weeks ago, I confirmed. My voice was tight. I was trying so hard to be polite, to just get this over with, but I could feel my cheeks getting warm. I felt singled out, embarrassed, and a little angry. Why were they doing this? We like to keep this community safe. Ms. Miller, the shorter one, chimed in, his tone all fake concern. Can't be too careful these days. Safe from what? Me and my box of cereal? The implication was clear. You look like a threat. I swallowed hard. I've dealt with my share of difficult customers at the diner, people who think they're better than you because you're serving them. This felt a lot like that, but worse, because this was my home. This was where I was supposed to feel safe. I understand wanting to keep the community safe, I said, my voice carefully measured. And I appreciate that. This is my assigned spot, and these are my groceries. Is there anything else? I just wanted them to leave. I wanted to get Jaden inside. The tall one handed my license back. He didn't apologize for the inconvenience. He didn't even crack a smile. He just kept looking at me with those hard eyes. Then, his gaze shifted. He leaned forward slightly, peering past me, towards the passenger side of my car. His eyes narrowed. The air suddenly felt colder. Is that your son in there? He asked. My blood ran cold. It wasn't the question itself, but the way he asked it. Something in his voice changed. It wasn't just about a suspicious car anymore. It felt different, sharper, like a predator that had just spotted something interesting. I froze, one hand still on the car door, the other clutching my purse. My heart started to pound in my chest, a frantic bird trapped in a cage. Why was he asking about Jaden? What did my son have to do with any of this? My mind raced. Yes, that's my son, Jaden, I said, trying to keep the tremor out of my voice. He's just waiting for me to unload the groceries. We just got home. Why were they so interested in him? My protective instincts flared up, hot and sharp. The tall officer, the one who seemed to be in charge, exchanged a look with the mustache guy. We've had some anonymous complaints, he said, his voice smooth and oily, like a salesman trying to trick you. Complaints about loitering. Youngsters making noise, hanging around cars after dark. Loitering? Noise? We'd been here for less than 5 minutes. And Jaden was inside the car, quiet as a mouse with his headphones on. This was a lie, a blatant, made-up lie. My heart, which had been pounding, now felt like a cold, hard stone in my chest. They weren't just suspicious of me, they were actively trying to cause trouble. That's impossible, I said, my voice firmer now. The fear was still there, but anger was starting to bubble up. We literally just pulled in. Jaden hasn't even gotten out of the car. Well, ma'am, anonymous complaints are still complaints, Mustache said, puffing out his chest a little. We have to check them out. For the safety and peace of the community, you understand. I understand that you're making things up, I said, my patience snapping. Now, if you'll excuse us, I reached for the grocery bags again. Not so fast, the tall one said, taking a step closer. He was definitely trying to intimidate me. Given the complaint and the general situation, we're going to need to take a look inside your vehicle. You want to search my car? I stared at him, dumbfounded. Absolutely not. You have no right to search my car. You're not police officers. We are Community Safety Patrol, authorized by the HOA, he said, his voice rising. And you're not being very cooperative, Ms. Miller. That kind of attitude can lead to a community violation. Fines, ma'am. We can issue fines. You're harassing me, I said, my voice shaking a little now despite my anger. In my own parking spot. I haven't done anything wrong. Getting smart with us, are you? Mustache sneered. That'll just make it worse for you. From inside the car, Jaden watched, his eyes wide above his headphones. He'd pulled them off when he heard the voices getting louder. Mom sounded upset, really upset. These men, they didn't look like nice neighborhood helpers. They looked mean. He'd seen shows on TV where people got into trouble. He felt a knot of fear in his stomach. He remembered his Uncle David, Mom's brother, telling him once, if you ever feel like something's really wrong and Mom needs help, and you can do it safely, get evidence. Uncle David was smart. He was a councilman, whatever that was. Jaden fumbled for his phone in his pocket. His hands were sweaty. He quickly opened the camera app and pressed record, trying to keep the phone low, pointing it through the gap between the seat and the door. Then, he remembered something else Uncle David said, and call me, anytime. He swiped out of the camera app, his fingers flying across the screen to his contacts. Uncle David. He typed a quick text, trouble at new house. HOA guys bothering Mom. Scared. He hit send, then quickly switched back to the video, hoping the men hadn't seen. The tall officer suddenly moved towards the passenger side of the car, where Jaden was. Let's just see who we have in here, he said, his hand reaching for Jaden's door handle. Need to verify who he is. No, I yelled, a surge of pure panic rushing through me. Get away from my son. Don't you dare open that door. I lunged forward, trying to get between him and the car, reaching to slam the door if he managed to open it. He was faster. He yanked the car door open. At the same moment, he turned and shoved me. Hard. It wasn't a gentle push. It was a full-bodied shove that sent me stumbling backwards. I cried out, more in shock than pain, my feet tingling, and I landed heavily on my hip on the cold, damp asphalt. The grocery bags I'd tried to hold onto went flying, their contents scattering. An apple rolled under a nearby bush, a box of crackers skidded across the ground. Mom. Jaden's voice was thin and scared. I scrambled to get up, my hip aching, my mind reeling. Jaden, stay in the car. Then I heard it. A sound I knew all too well. A tight, strained wheezing. Jaden, the shock of the open door, seeing me pushed, the fear, it had triggered his asthma. He needs his inhaler. I shrieked, pushing myself up. My eyes scanned the car. Jaden was gasping, his face pale, fumbling in his backpack, which had fallen to the car floor. His inhaler, his blue lifesaver, slipped from his trembling fingers and clattered onto the pavement near the open car door, just out of his reach. Jaden, it's okay, baby, I'm coming. I lunged for the inhaler, but the shorter officer, mustache, stepped in front of me, blocking my path. Now, let's all just calm down, he said, but his eyes were cold. He can't breathe. I screamed, desperation clawing at my throat. I tried to push past him, but he stood firm. Get out of my way. He needs his medicine. I saw the blue inhaler lying there. I stretched, my fingers just inches away. Then, the tall officer, the one who had opened the door, deliberately kicked out with his foot. His shoe connected with the small plastic inhaler, sending it skittering across the driveway, disappearing into the darkness under a parked SUV several spaces away. No! A raw, animalistic cry tore from my chest. Jaden was making horrible, gasping sounds now, his eyes wide with terror. The officers were shouting something, their voices a distorted roar over the sound of my own heartbeat and Jaden's desperate fight for air. Just as I thought I was going to completely lose it, a blinding light swept across the driveway. Headlights. A car was turning into our parking area, its engine a low rumble that cut through the awful sounds of Jaden's gasps and the officers yelling. Those headlights felt like a spotlight in a dark, scary play. For a split second, I wondered if it was more HOA people or maybe the actual police, though why they'd be here, I didn't know. Jaden was still making those awful, strangled sounds, his small body tense with the effort to breathe. My world had shrunk to the sound of his gasps and the sight of that blue inhaler, lost somewhere in the shadows. Then, a sleek black SUV screeched, and I mean screeched, to a halt right behind my old sedan. The driver's door flew open and a man stepped out. He was tall, wearing a perfectly pressed dark suit, and even in the dim light, I could see he meant business. He moved fast, his face set in a grim line. My heart leaped. It was Marcus, my brother, Jaden's uncle Marcus. What was he doing here? How did he even know? Before I could even form a word, Marcus was there, his presence like a shield. He took one look at Jaden, still trapped in the car, his face pale and slick with sweat, then at me, kneeling on the ground, probably looking like a wild woman. His eyes, usually kind, were like chips of ice as he turned to the two HOA officers. What in God's name is going on here? Marcus's voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the air, sharp and commanding. It stopped the two HOA men cold. They'd been muttering something about uncooperative residents and protocol, but their voices died in their throats. Sir, this is an HOA matter. The taller one started, trying to sound official, but his voice cracked a little. Marcus didn't even let him finish. This is my sister, and that is my nephew, who is having a severe asthma attack. Get away from them. Now, he took a step forward, and the two men actually took a step back. Then, Marcus reached into his suit jacket and pulled out a slim leather wallet. He flipped it open. Marcus Thorne, City Council. And you two are. I saw the change immediately. The blood drained from the faces of those two bullies. The taller one's jaw went slack, and mustache suddenly looked like he'd swallowed a bug. Their tough guy act melted away like ice cream on a hot sidewalk. That little badge Marcus showed them, his official city credentials, was clearly a much bigger deal than their silly little HOA badges. We were just doing our job, sir, the tall one stammered, his eyes darting nervously between Marcus and me. There was a complaint. I'll hear all about your job in a minute, Marcus said, his voice dangerously calm. He pulled out his phone. First, I'm calling for an ambulance for my nephew. And then I'm calling the actual police to sort this out. He dialed, spoke quickly and clearly, giving our address. Yes, officer, I pre-alerted dispatch. Situation has escalated. Assault on a minor, possible medical emergency due to their actions. My head was spinning. Pre-alerted? How? Then I looked at Jaden. He was still struggling to breathe, but his eyes were on his uncle, and then he looked at his phone, still clutched in his hand. Oh, my smart boy. My clever, brave boy. Before Marcus even finished his call, I heard sirens in the distance. They were close, getting closer fast. The HOA goons heard them too. They looked like they wanted the ground to swallow them up. Sir, perhaps we can just resolve this amongst ourselves? Mustache tried, his voice wheedling. No need to get the police involved in a simple misunderstanding. Marcus just gave him a look that could freeze fire. Two police cars and an ambulance pulled up, lights flashing, bathing the whole scene in red and blue. It was almost surreal. Paramedics were out of the ambulance in a flash, heading straight for Jaden. I scrambled towards him, finally reaching his side. It's okay, baby. Help is here. While one paramedic started giving Jaden oxygen, another gently checked him over. Marcus was talking to a police officer, a woman with a no-nonsense look on her face. He pointed at the two HOA men who were now standing stiffly by their golf cart, looking utterly defeated. Then, Jaden, bless his heart, weakly lifted his phone. He tapped the screen, and his small, shaky voice said, "Uncle Marcus." I recorded it. Marcus crouched down beside him. "You did, buddy? You're a hero." He took the phone. The police officer came over. We all watched as Marcus played the video. It was a bit shaky, filmed from inside the car, but it was all there. The men's aggressive questions, their voices, the demand to search the car, the threat of a fine. Then, the awful moment the door was yanked open, my shout, the sound of me being shoved, and then Jaden's wheezing. The officer's face grew grimmer with every second. You could even hear one of them knocking the inhaler away, followed by my desperate cry. When it finished, there was a heavy silence. The female officer looked at the two HOA men. "You two are going to come with us," she said, her voice flat. "We need to ask you some questions down at the station." Another officer started to read them their rights. Their faces were pale green under the flashing lights. They didn't say a word as they were led to the police cars. Gone was the arrogance, the fake authority. They just looked like what they were, bullies who had been caught. One of the paramedics was now looking at me. "Ma'am, are you okay? You took a hard fall. I'd almost forgotten." My hip throbbed, and I realized my elbow was scraped and bleeding from where I'd hit the pavement. I'll be okay," I said, but my voice was shaky. "Jaden is what matters. He's stable, but we need to take him to the hospital to get him checked out properly," the paramedic said kindly. "His breathing is still a bit rough. You should come too. Get yourself looked at." Marcus put a comforting hand on my shoulder. "Go with him, Lisa. I'll meet you there. I just need to give a full statement here." He paused, then said, "No, scratch that. I'm riding with you guys. I can give my statement at the hospital. My car can stay here." Relief, so strong it almost buckled my knees, washed over me. Jaden was safe. Help was here. These awful men were being dealt with. As the paramedics helped Jaden onto a stretcher and lifted him into the ambulance, I climbed in after him, settling onto the small bench. Marcus sat beside me, his presence a solid comfort. Jaden, with an oxygen mask on, reached out a small hand and I gripped it tightly. The ambulance doors started to close, shutting out the flashing lights and the chaos of our driveway. Just before they sealed, Marcus looked at me, his eyes still serious, but with a hint of a fierce protectiveness I knew so well. "They picked the wrong family to mess with tonight. Lisa," he said, his voice low and certain. And as the ambulance pulled away, leaving our so-called safe community behind, I knew he was right. Everything was about to change. The hospital was a blur of beeping machines, kind nurses, and the smell of antiseptic. Jaden, thankfully, responded quickly to the nebulizer treatment. His breathing eased, and the terror in his eyes slowly faded, replaced by an exhausted sort of calm. They checked me over too. My hip was badly bruised, and my elbow needed a good cleaning and a bandage, but mostly I was just shaken to my core. Marcus stayed with us the whole time, a steady, reassuring presence. He handled the police questions at the hospital, making sure Jaden didn't have to talk too much while he was still recovering. The next morning, after a restless night where every creak in the old townhouse sounded like footsteps, Marcus called. "Lisa," he said, his voice serious, "I think we need to talk about that video Jaden took. With your permission, I think it needs to be seen." My first instinct was to say no. I didn't want Jaden's face, or mine, plastered everywhere. I didn't want to be that woman from the HOA incident. But then I thought about those two men, their smug faces, the way they'd threatened me, shoved me, and worst of all, how they'd endangered my son. And I thought about how easily it could have been so much worse if Marcus hadn't shown up. "Okay, Marcus," I said, my voice quiet but firm. "Okay, if you think it will help." Help? It was like lighting a match in a fireworks factory. Marcus, with his city connections and a good understanding of how to get attention for the right reasons, knew exactly what to do. He released the video to a local news blogger he trusted. By lunchtime, it was everywhere. My phone started buzzing with alerts. Friends I hadn't spoken to in months were calling, texting. "Lisa, is that you? Are you okay?" It was strange, seeing my own scared face and hearing my own shaky voice on a news website, then on the evening news itself. They blurred Jaden's face, thank goodness. The video was grainy, a little shaky, but it was undeniable. You could hear the arrogance in those HOA guys' voices. You could see the shove. You could hear Jaden struggling to breathe, and my desperate pleas. You could even hear the sickening little click when the officer kicked the inhaler away. The comments online were a flood. Most people were horrified, angry on our behalf. Of course, there were a few trolls, but mostly it was support. And then, something else started happening. Other people from our neighborhood, and even from nearby HOAs, started sharing their own stories. Not as dramatic as ours, maybe, but stories of being hassled, fined for silly things, treated rudely by overzealous board members or patrols. It was like a dam had broken. It turned out I wasn't the first person those two safety officers had targeted with their power trip. I was just the first one who had undeniable proof. The HOA board tried to do damage control. They released a statement about an unfortunate incident and taking matters very seriously. But the pressure was immense. Marcus, using his position, started asking some very pointed questions about the HOA's bylaws, their training for patrol members, which, it turned out, was basically non-existent, and their complaint procedures. There were emergency community meetings that I heard were pretty heated. People were angry. They wanted accountability. Within 2 weeks, the entire HOA board resigned. The two safety officers had already been fired by the private security company the HOA used, and they were facing assault charges. It was a swift, stunning turnaround. Then came something I never expected. Marcus called me again. "Lisa," he said, a smile in his voice this time. "The city council just passed a new ordinance. They're unofficially calling it Jaden's Law." My heart swelled. Jaden's Law. "Yep," he said. "It requires any private neighborhood patrol, HOA or otherwise, to wear body cameras if they're going to be interacting with residents in any kind of enforcement capacity. And they have to undergo mandatory de-escalation and anti-bias training. Body cameras and training. Simple things, really. Things that might have stopped our nightmare before it even started. It wouldn't undo what happened, but it felt like something good had come out of it. Something that might protect other people." Jaden, when I told him, puffed out his chest a little. He was still a bit shy about all the attention, but I could see the pride in his eyes. The new interim HOA board, made up of residents who actually seemed to care about the community, not just the rules, reached out to me. They asked if I would consider joining a new oversight committee they were forming to help make sure things stayed fair and transparent. My first thought was, are you kidding me? The last thing I want is more HOA drama. I just wanted to be left alone, to live quietly with Jaden. But then I thought about it. If good people didn't step up, things could easily slide back. "Okay," I told them, taking a deep breath. "I'll do it." Reluctantly, I added, with a small smile, "But I'll do it." Life slowly started to find its new normal. Jaden went back to being a regular 11-year-old, though he was a bit of a local celebrity at school for a while. Kids would whisper, "That's the boy who caught the bad guys on his phone." He handled it pretty well, mostly just shrugging. We were both still a little jumpy. A car slowing down outside our townhouse at night would make my heart beat a little faster. But we were stronger too. We'd faced something ugly, and we'd come through it. The other day, I was taking out the trash, making sure to do it at the exact right time. Old habits die hard, I guess, when one of my neighbors, a quiet woman I'd only ever nodded to before, stopped me. She glanced around, then leaned in and whispered, "Thank you." I must have looked confused. "For standing up," she said, her voice barely audible. "For all of us. We were too scared." She gave me a small, grateful smile and then hurried inside her house. It hit me then. I hadn't wanted any of this. I wasn't trying to be a hero or a troublemaker. I was just a mom, trying to protect her son and live her life. I didn't plan on being the one to call it out. But maybe that's how change starts, when someone finally says enough.